Hello everyone, thanks for coming to my talk. Today I will be talking to you about generating and creating terrains using terrain tools in Unity. I'm Pawel Homenko, I'm a Unity developer / technical artist for the past 13 years now. I mostly nowadays work at a nature manufacturer which creates a little things like, I hope it scatters, like assets, like these ones, tools for creating rivers, roads, terrains, painting terrains, and similar things. When we started doing this, Unity was a bit young. We started at Unity 2.2, so it was quite a while ago. But back then, they created a terrain system. The terrain system, which for many years was quite laggy, based on the CPU, and mostly when you tried to use it for generating something or doing something from programmatical side was very painful. Yeah, mostly you could create terrains like this. I hope like this that you see below with just painting tools that are basic. You could also take your code, take everything from terrain as simple array and change this array however you want it. Yeah, but it's for terrains for 256 or 520 size. Yeah, it was okay. But if you started doing bigger terrains, bigger worlds, even the best computers would die. Yeah, so if you wanted to give tools to your artists, it was possible, but they had to have good computers. If you wanted to give it to players, it mostly it wasn't a good idea. The best thing we did back then was changing terrains into meshes and changing these meshes with some shaders or some computer. Yeah? Of course, you could go this into second thread and change it into thread, but then you have to go back to the main thread and apply these things, which gave a big hiccup. So Unity, a few years ago, started moving into new terrain API. The team grew from one person to several persons, and they moved into Unity terrain tools. Yeah. If you take the terrain tools into Unity, your first thing is you get additional things. Because terrain tools right now is split into two parts. One part that is built into Unity. You can use it in the AP side from the beginning. But the second part is into package that you can download additionally. This package changes not only how terrain system works, but gives you additional options into the designers that can now use some additional layering, additional brush painting, and stuff like that. But downloading this package, but not only, gives you the ability to write your own tools. You can write several types of these tools. Yeah, the basic thing that Unity wants you to write is just not my tool. You see the code, but I will quickly switch to Unity. So you can just take your basic stamp, which Unity has, or you can create your own simple tool that will do the same. Or it will be a brush that will erode the terrain, a brush that will give you some water simulation and additional possibilities. But this is the first step in using terrain tools. Yeah? This is something that if you take, you are writing into Unity editor. Yeah? You're expanding it into just adding something, some new brushes. Yeah? The base for it is this class terrain paint tool, which you have to override and add several functions that you see here. The big thing I will have to tell you is that the documentation for this is mostly not existent. I will quickly showcase for someone who wants to use it. This version of Unity documentation doesn't work, even if it's for 4.3, which is current version. This for 4.5.1. Oh, why do you don't see this? Okay. Okay, 1 second. Now you see it? Yeah, okay. So this is the terrain tool that I was talking about. that I wrote myself and to use. For documentation, 4.0, no documentation. 5.0, no documentation. The only documentation that works is this one link. Only this one. Each other that you copy into Unity won't work. From 220T to 222 doesn't work. In the earlier versions, then 2020, it will. But if you want to write your own, this is the only thing. Yeah? So you have to write something like that for terrain tool. The base for it is, to be truthful, two methods. The method for brush and this one. They can look troublesome, but they are quite easy to understand. What Unity gives you here is terrain over which your designer or you have your mouse over. This is this one. And edit context. Edit context has mostly two informations. One is where the terrain was clicked. And second information, what brush texture you used. Yeah, because you can take your brush texture and add it to Unity just by putting it into exact folder that Unity wants you to put it. And with it, you gain two things. Most important is this method for painting height. Begin paint height map. It takes the two information that you gave, the terrain, and the size of the brush that you have, and gives you paint context. The paint context has the information about current height map that terrain uses. It takes it from the render texture that Unity uses for the terrain, and bleeds the current height map from the terrain. The same for the painting terrain, it gets you the splat map. That's over there. And then with this render texture, you can do whatever you can want with render texture to image shaders. Yeah? With here, Unity just takes it. This is a sample that Unity mostly gives, and takes their material, which goes to this simple shader. The shader, for example, for the one that I used, is something like that. So it just takes the height map, takes the brush that we used, unpacks it, mostly because you have to check for different versions of computer that someone will use, multiplies it, and starts it back into the height map that it was. So this is the high-ink the terrain. If you take and override it, that the brush will take whatever you want, you can make quite interesting things. And then after it, it bleeds into the height map. Yeah? The thing, and there are two things. In the rendered brush preview, it just displays this height map. Yeah, it takes your brush and takes the height map that you just created through image shader and writes it into this green rendering that you see. The second thing in the paint that's different, it goes to end paint height map, which takes your height map and bleeds it back to the terrain, so Unity terrain will change with it. So this is the basic use of it. The other thing that we can do with it is create our own window tool. Yeah? We can create, for example, I deselect it, take some texture. I will showcase you how it can work. And we can have our own tool. Yeah? It takes the same approach, but the only difference that you have to take is you don't get the context that Unity gave you in that tool when you're using terrain tools window. You have to take scene GUI, and on scene GUI you have to find where the player has clicked and choose what you want to do there. So showcase him the brush that he points itself, or you can just take and position the brush over the whole terrain. Let me just clear the terrain. Position the brush and paint entire terrain with the brush that you created. So then the code between this example, if you want to write on, and this example that I wrote for, 1 second, for this window, the only thing that changes is that you're writing your own GUI, which is needed for 10, and getting the scene GUI that will playcast the terrain and get you the position on terrain. That is the only difference. Or you position the entire terrain, then you're giving Unity entire terrain size, and it just bleeds the height map into this terrain. Yeah, and the second difference is taking the blast size and blast rotation from the GUI rather than from what the terrain tool was selected. But this is not the only thing you can do. The good thing about terrain tools is that they also work on play mode. So you can, if you write play mode tools for players. As you can see, I can change terrain quite quickly on this computer. You can bleed entire terrains in matters of milliseconds and even faster. There are already tools on the asset store that takes entire terrains and redraws entire height map in matters of just parts of milliseconds. Yeah, because that's fast is the terrain tools right now. Given this approach, the only difference now is mostly that it works again, the same approach, but now you are doing it on update rather than on Steam GUI. And you have to prepare your own preview, because preview, I don't know why, is only editor-based. The preview for the tool is only editor-based, and you have to write your own preview. So for this preview, I just took some simple plane, added the brush to it, and told the shader for this preview to just hire the preview brush so it looks like the brush that I'm putting into it. Yeah. So this is the third option that you can use it. And the last option, which we'll go back to, is, I think, one that I like the most for giving additional possibilities, because first one gives us the possibility that we use some terrain creator engines. We can take from them the height maps, then we can use our own tools for creating wind erosion, water erosion, adding things like that. But if you want, for example, add some road, the easiest thing is to take your mesh and bleed terrain with the size and look of your mesh. It helps in this way that if this mesh was a spline or any type of roads or any city, you could just take this and from it create render texture, because the thing I'm doing here is taking camera, putting it on top of the mesh, because I want the top of it to be blended into terrain, not the bottom. You can take the bottom if you want it from the bottom. And I'm rendering this mesh into the render texture from the camera. And then this render texture, putting it back into Unity terrain tools for writing back. And again, as you can see, the speed of it is the same as speed is on the play mode. Yeah? So you can add the player possibility to build roads, build splines, and accommodate terrain to them in just a matter of seconds. Yeah. Okay, and this last one, I mostly do the depth mask, as I call it. I just do it from this demo. I use the just position of the mesh, each pixel of the mesh from ground up. I create height map, and I just use depth buffer to load this mesh into the texture I create myself. Yeah. So you can use normal render texture, you can use temporary render texture, and just take it from there. The possibilities for this one are that, for example, when I'm creating lakes or rivers with our tools, I'm blurring them so I can get the inside of the mesh, blurring outside for getting the outsides of the mesh, and then I can have slopes from the mesh that I created in any direction. But I'm also then getting normals to normal maps. I'm getting additional information that the mesh can give me to put it into painting the terrain the way I want from the exact size, look, and feel of these meshes. Yeah. Okay, let me get back to it. Yeah, so we talked about custom tools, play mode tools, meshes, and few things to keep in mind about it. You can use them in editor, as I showcased. Can be used in game, which I would suggest if you're creating game when players want to use them. The main things too that are behind it is render textures and shaders. Yes, so for writing it, you have to use shaders, and unfortunately, there are no visual graphs for it. So mostly writing the shaders by hand and shading the things. And the last thing, and the most important, don't trust the Unity documentation for it because it doesn't work in any way. For me, best approach to learning it is going through the code. As I showcased here, it was a thing that I wanted to showcase you. The entire code, for example, let's say get building material, is in editor. You can scroll entire code and check everything that Unity does. Entire brushes and things are there. Most of them are quite well documented inside the code, not in the documentation. So we can check how they are doing it, and from this perspective, check everything and copy it into quite few tools. Yeah. So for me, so for now, if the presentation lets me show, time for questions. Yeah. If you have any, one last thing, if you have any questions about Terrain tools or need any assistance with them, I can send you this project that I created, so you can check it and look at it yourselves, or if you can give you guidance how to create these tools yourself.
Thank you very much. I have a question about splat map painting, and if the new Terrain tools replaces an old API for splat map, and is there anything we can do to improve the performance of splat mapping and painting, runtime painting of a terrain?
Yeah, it works. You still have the old API, yeah? They didn't disband it. To be truthful, when you look at it, you can check that it goes back to Terrain tools like now too, because it's just, they changed the behind code for the old API. But yeah, the painting is mostly done the same way. But the difference is that rather than taking begin height map, you take begins draw splat or something like that. I will don't remember the exact keyword, and then you have to select which layer you're painting at once, because unfortunately you still have to paint each splat map layer at once, but you can paint it however you want. Mostly what I'm doing in my editor right now, I'm taking the terrain, checking the normals of terrain, checking the slopes, and from it I generating in the shaders the splat maps that when the slope is high, I'm generating something. So mostly, yeah, the splat maps work fast. My designer tested our tool for I think 50 layers of painting with slopes, with checking heights, and etc. etc. And it took 100 of milliseconds to paint entire terrain with 50 layers. So yeah, it's quite fast.
Thank you very much.
The tools you showed, those simple examples of like building your brushes, an example, is it immediately coupled with the details system? So any rocks, grass, trees that are placed, that they will immediately respond to the terrain shaping?
Yeah, it was the same with the old version. It depends on the selection of the options that you have, but yeah, mostly when you are changing the height map, it calculates all the grass, trees, and etc. When you're doing it, you have two options. One option is to hide the entire tree, so the player, for a moment, it disappears on where it goes up. If the player doesn't want to, you don't want to have in the gameplay just big jump from this height of tree to this height of tree, you can just take it and in few curtains or threads, just get the terrain up slowly so you have animation for it. Yeah, because with this kind of speed you can animate the change from the render texture to second render texture in some matter. So I tried something like that. So I took one, I render textured my brush, and then the final render texture was the lag between this one and this one, which I go through several frames so the player sees how it goes up, not just bump. Any more questions?
Thank you.
No problem. Okay, then thank you for the hearing and have a nice last few hours of gig.